Hello everyone! So today I am here to do my June reading wrap-up. So the month of June was a little weird just because I had kind of a bad mental health month. Summer is just a really rough time for me and my mental health. So I did read quite a bit, but it was all basically in the first 2 weeks of the month. But I did read 11 books and I will be talking about them with you guys today. Figured I'd show my page tracker because people always like seeing that. Yeah, that was my page tracker. Again, as you can see, tons of reading at the very beginning of the month, little bit in the middle, and then just totally stopped besides audiobooks. So yeah, we'll be talking about I think it's 11, let me double check, 11 books and 4,137 pages that I read this month. So really quick, I'm going to tell you guys what I read for the Murakami Marathon, which is the read-a-thon that I held this month from June 9th to the 22nd. If you guys somehow missed it, I daily vlogged and posted about it so much, so I really don't know how you guys would have been able to miss that, but I read 3 books for that and I've already wrapped them up and talked about them in very much, a lot of detail in those vlogs, so I'm not going to go into them too much, but I'll really quickly talk about them now. So the first book that I finished for that read-a-thon was the buddy read, and that was After Dark, obviously by Haruki Murakami. Those are all of my notes. I annotated my copy, and this was so much fun. I recommend anyone who's doing a read-a-thon where there is a group read, make a buddy read group chat. That was the most fun thing I've ever done, I think, with BookTube, was having those group chats. And also it's really cute, it made me feel really good because both of the Instagram and the Twitter group chats just became group chats for people to talk, and my heart is warm. And we read After Dark together and the discussions on this book were amazing. It made the readathon so worth it, even though I wasn't in the best place for the readathon. It made this readathon so fucking fun, and yeah, I love this book. I originally gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, and this was my first time rereading it, and I actually must say that I lowered it to a 4.5. This book, it's my favorite trope. It is a book that happens all in one night, and we follow a girl named Mari who kind of has her little adventure throughout the night in Tokyo, including going to a Denny's and helping a love hotel and stuff like that, and meeting this guy named Takahashi, who I fucking hate, and then also her sister, who is in a very deep sleep and can't wake up. Again, I really love this book, really fucking love it. The thing that made it go down was Takahashi. I don't know how I managed to forget his existence, because genuinely before this reread I did not remember him. I couldn't get over how annoying that character was. He was so obnoxious, I couldn't get over it. But yeah, I mean, maybe I do want to just give it a 5, because other than him, it's a 5 out of 5 star book, and those discussions were a 6 out of 5 stars. I fucking loved hearing everyone's discussion of this book so much, made my life so good, and I do love this book. But Takahashi's just so annoying. And then I read the new to me Murakami book, Men Without Women, which is his short story collection. I've talked about it a little bit. I gave the collection a 3 out of 5 star. I just don't really like short stories, and I really didn't like these short stories that much. There were a couple that were great, but I found that Murakami's flaws came out a lot more in his short fiction. Things that I felt like I could see past in a longer piece of fiction were very much enhanced by these stories being so short. Again, there were a couple I really hated. Let me see. Drive My Car I found was kind of sexist and pointless. Yesterday felt very pointless. And Independent Organ was the most offensive shit. I was like, Murakami, what the fuck? But I did really like Shahrazad, Kino, and Men Without Women was okay. But yeah, so it was fine. I don't really like short stories. I really would not read short stories unless they're Murakami. So, and then the third book that I finished for the Murakami Marathon was the one that I had hoped to get to the most, so I'm really happy I finished it, and that is Hardbound, Wonderland, and the End of the World. This is a book I originally gave 3 out of 5 stars, and I really didn't understand it, really didn't get it at all, and I really wanted to reread it because I thought that this could be a 5 out of 5 star. Gave it a 5-star prediction, and I still just don't totally get this book, I guess. I get the parallels, I get the ideas behind it, I really like some of the ideas behind it, but I just don't fully get it, I don't think. But that being said, I did really, really love this book. or well, not love. Love is a strong word. Really liked it. There was so much to talk about and so much to theorize with that I do kind of regret not making this the buddy read, because I wish I'd had more people to talk to about this, but this is not a very popular Murakami book. I think the only other person who's read it that I know is Dylan, and he'd read it a long time ago, so I was just kind of on my own trying to figure things out, and I really wished I had more people to talk to about it. But that being said, did really enjoy theorizing. There was a lot more that I noticed. I really enjoyed some discussions in it. Just didn't 100% fully understand the point of this book. So I give it a 4 out of 5 star. Really liked it. Just still a little confused. And then at the beginning of the month and at the very end of the month, I read 2 books from the same series, and that is the Written in Red series, The Others novel. I read this first book and the second book, Murder of Crows. But yeah, I read this first book and the second book, and I would listen to them on audio, and I actually really like the audiobooks. They're a lot of fun, and this series is a paranormal series about basically a world where there are these things called Terra Indigene, which are like Earth natives, and they are all the animals who learn how to turn into humans, so they're shapeshifters kind of thing, and then the humans who also live there, and kind of the relationships between humans and these others, and is about this girl who runs away from this place, and she finds herself in one of the others kind of areas, and she starts working for them, and there's kind of a romance, kind of not, just weird friendshipy kind of thing. And basically these are just a lot of fun. The plots are definitely not the best. I don't know, the way I would describe these books is they're like reading fan fiction, because these are not fan fiction. They're not at all, but it's just like you live for those little interaction moments a lot more than the actual plot. The plot is not that great, but the characters are awesome, the relationships are great, the world building is great, and like everything else matters so much more than the actual like what's happening. I lived so much more for like Meg's interactions with other people than like the actual plot of this book or either books. And I lived for the like learning about everything. It's not a very complex series because I've talked about this several times. I really haven't been liking fantasy recently, and I think that comes from the fact that I really, really, really hate politics in books. I hate politics, I hate war, and these are just fun. Like, there's technically kind of politics happening, kind of, but it's not like really talked about that much, and it's not in hard words or annoying things and stuff. It's just kind of like humans versus others. That's about it. And I just really, really enjoyed the characters of this book. I gave this first one a 4 out of 5 star. I did give the second one a 3 out of 5 star because that one seemed a little bit too sophomore book syndrome. While this one's plot was definitely like not the strongest thing ever, the second book didn't even exist. Like, at least in this one, we kind of like were building up to a big climax. This one barely had anything actually happen in it. Like, there is something big that happens at the end of the book, but like it felt like it was setting up for the next couple of books. But that being said, these are just so enjoyable, just so fun, and they're really, really fun audiobooks to listen to. So I am waiting currently on the third book to be able to listen to that because, yeah, I just really have enjoyed these. And then I picked up a NA adult romance, and everyone's read this. It's The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I've never read a Christina Lauren before, but I was actually quite interested in this one. Plus, these, like, I'm not a cover person, but this is just too fun to not like catch your eye. Plus, Barnes & Noble was having a sale. It was like 40% off, not 20% off. So I picked it up and I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm sure everyone knows the plot of this. Two people who hate each other go on a honeymoon together and they fall in love. The thing that I actually really liked a lot more in this book than the romance actually was the relationship between the twin sisters and kind of what was happening with the other sister. I found that I was actually way more interested in her story than I was in the actual story, but it was a lot of fun. This was just a really quick, gushy, fun little read. Really enjoyed it. Okay, this next thing kind of fucked up. So I read The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers, and this has been on my TBR for ages. I've had the book on my Kindle for probably a year and a half, 2 years. It's everyone's favorite sci-fi. I was really interested because, again, I love my sci-fi fantasy worlds. I don't like politics or war, so this being a character-driven sci-fi really interested me, so wanted to pick it up. I loved this first book. It was great. It was just as great as everyone talks about it being. I give it like a 4.5 star, I think. Maybe 4.25. Really enjoyed it. Loved it. I loved learning about all the characters. I loved learning about all the worlds and aliens and stuff. Just loved it. It was so good. It was such a good time. I listened to the audiobook. It was such a fun time. And then I really wanted to pick up the second book. But my library app, my Libby app, it has like first book in a series, second book in a series, third book in a series. And it said that the third book was the second book. So I read the third book, and okay, listen, I heard that this one, I heard a lot of people who were fans of the first two books really didn't like the third one, and I wasn't planning on reading it. I just wanted to read the first two. So that's why halfway through this one is when I noticed that it was the third book, because I was like, this is sucking. So I looked up on Goodreads, and yeah, it was the third book. This one really does suck. I really didn't understand. I feel like Becky Chambers realized that she was known for her character-driven sci-fi novels and took it way too far. This was just so boring and unnecessary, and I just was like, at least the first one, everyone was kind of connected. This one, the connection was very barely there, and I don't know, I wasn't as interested in the characters. I just found it really boring, if I'm completely honest. And yeah, they're having a character-driven sci-fi, and then there's having, literally no plot, and we're just following the daily life of people, which I'm not a fan of. I still can't believe I accidentally read the third book. I don't know if I'll go back and read the second book, if I'm completely honest. I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I read the first and third book, though. And then I also listened to The Hating Game, which is another book that I've had on my Kindle for, a year. I think this one was actually on my top ebooks to read in 2019, which I've completely ignored. But that was a video I made at the beginning of the year. And yeah, this is everyone's favorite romance book on BookTube, so I wanted to give it a try. And I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's a office romance, so it's a hate to love romance, and that going into it. So it's but I really enjoyed these characters. It was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the banter. I really like hate to love romances, just like everyone else ever. I don't know, I just find it really, really fun. I really liked their banter. I really liked them slowly falling in love. It was just really cute. I really liked it. Thought it was really fun. I'm really sad to hear that her second book sucks, because this was really, really good, and I really, really enjoyed it. But yeah, if you guys want a really fun romance, this one's worth the hype. I gave it a 4 out of 5 star. It was pretty good. And then I read a book for Pride, and guys, I fucking loved this. I had a moment that I just bought a couple of books, which I never do that. I just never spontaneously buy books, but I bought this and Her Royal Highness at the same time. And at first I was like, oof, should I not have done that? But then I got them and I read this immediately, the moment it came. I fucking loved it. And that is Birthday by Meredith Russo. This is a book about two people who have the same birthday, and they're best friends. And this book follows them on their birthday from age 13 to age 18, and only on that day each year. Basically, it follows a character named Morgan who is trans, and she is trying to tell her best friend that she's trans. But every year, her life just gets harder and harder and harder and pushes her further and further back into the closet. And she just doesn't feel comfortable coming out as a girl. And her best friend still sees her as a boy. And he's very confused because he identifies as a heterosexual male, but he still feels attraction towards Morgan. And there's this, it's so good. I can't get over it. It was such a good book. I was tearing up. I had just had a lot of emotions because of this book, and just being in Morgan's head, it really hits you. It really hits you really hard, especially if you've ever just been questioning about anything about yourself, or just scared to come out as gay or trans or any part of your identity. You will just relate so hard to Morgan. And even Eric, honestly, just being confused about your sexuality, thinking you know yourself, but then something happens that you think maybe you don't. And then just parents, shitty people, all of that. This has so many trigger warnings. I do warn you guys to go and check out reviews to find the trigger warnings, because this has a lot of trigger warnings that kind of come with hard-hitting gay contemporary books. This is a really short read. I absolutely loved it. I actually gave this a 5 out of 5 stars, which I did not expect. But I was genuinely almost sobbing at the end, and it really takes a lot for a book to make me cry. I really don't cry at books. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful book, and I think everyone needs to read this. It was amazing. Really highly recommend it. And the final book that I read this month was one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is Recursion by Blake Crouch. If you guys don't know, Blake Crouch is like one of my favorite authors. I fucking love his book Dark Matter. It's like one of my favorite books of all time. I love his Pines series, one of my favorite series of all time. Freaking love this man. Was so excited for his new book. Got it, read it, loved it. I think anyone who's nervous about going into his new book after Dark Matter, rest assured. Like, it does feel a little bit like he was trying to go for a Dark Matter vibe, but also if you read his other books, that's just his vibe. You know what I mean? But I loved this. I didn't like it as much as Dark Matter, and I definitely had some problems with it. But this was actually a really fun book to read because me and Dylan low-key buddy read it together. Like, didn't really buddy read it together, but we're reading it at the same time, so we kept discussing as one of us caught up to each other, and it was a lot of fun. We both had similar problems with it, but those are kind of spoilers, but then Haley and I also had the same problem. So like Haley, me, and Dylan all had the same problem. So I think a lot of people are gonna have that problem with this book. But other than that, like one thing in this book, I think this is a great book. This book follows basically this world where there is something called, what's it called? False memory syndrome that is like an epidemic around the city. And you kind of find out what causes this, because basically people are suddenly just like remembering an entire life that they never had. So like we begin this book with a woman who's about to kill herself, and she says, I remember this life. I had this husband who I loved so much. I had this child. I raised him. Like all of this happened, and then just one instant to the next, I was sitting at a desk at a business I'd never seen or heard of before, and my life was gone. I wasn't married to my husband anymore. My child didn't exist. All of this. And this entire life that she had is still in her memory, but it doesn't exist. And that is happening all across the city and all across the world. And basically, it's our main character trying to figure out what is happening. This is really, really fun sci-fi. It definitely goes a little bit heavy into the science portion of it, which is one of my things I didn't love about it, was that I felt like this book tried a little too hard to make sense of everything and give everything an explanation, which sometimes I just don't want one. That was my thing with the ending of this book, was I felt like it was definitely trying really hard to give everyone a satisfying ending and tell everyone kind of an explanation for what was happening. But I don't know, I kind of wish it had just been like a Murakami book where I just kind of saw these characters experiencing this thing and then was left with questions. Sometimes I want questions. Sometimes I don't want explanations. You know what I mean? But other than that, and there is one kind of weird relationship in this book, which is what Haley and Dylan and I really didn't like, was that there was, I don't want to call it insta-love, but there is kind of a weird insta-lovey relationship in this book, which is weird. But other than those things, this book is so unique and so creative. Blake Crouch, I'm just like, boy, where'd you get your ideas? Because they're so interesting. Really, really enjoyed this. It's kind of, I don't want to say it's like Groundhog's Day, because I love that trope. And it's kind of like that. It's kind of like Groundhog's Day meets Dark Matter. So if you like those, I think you'll really like this. It's really good. But anyways, those are the 11 things that I read this month. Definitely tell me down below in the comments if you guys have read any of these books, and also what your favorite book of June was. But anyways, I love y'all, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye!